how did you get here? Like, why did you decide to do this? Which is a very niche, very important, but very niche area. Like, where did it come from?
Although I grew up in England, I wanted to go back home to South Africa, and I wanted to work in the industry there, as I felt like I could make a bigger impact. And working there, I think, was a massive shock. I realized that the advertising space in South Africa, although it's an 80% Black and people of color country, the storytelling just didn't get across. For example, there was this brand that wanted to do, they were a hair brand, I think shampoo or something, and they had a picture of a girl with an afro, a Black girl with an afro, and they were like dry, unhealthy hair. And then they had a picture of a blonde girl with sleek hair, and they were like healthy hair. And anywhere else, if you were actually in tune with the culture, you would actually understand that that's just how Black people's hair looks like. It's curly, it's wild. But there's such a disconnect that was even able to get approved and go far. And I think going into that world and seeing this, and also just feeling like as a person of color, I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard. I go and I do my research, and I realize that there's very few actually Black owned agencies that actually exist in South Africa. I realized from that if I want to change, that I'd have to start my own thing. And that's how VUCA was born, which is Zulu, meaning to awaken. And I decided that using this agency, I was going to create a brand that worked with other brands, that saw people, that collaborated with all types of people, that a brand that gave voice, a brand that actually told the real story and got to the essence. And yeah, that's where my journey started. And now it's been 4 years.
I think this is the case with many people when they start their entrepreneurial journey is they don't feel represented. They don't feel like their voice, whether it's because of their background, their race, their history, whatever, they don't feel that they're represented. And so the idea is, I'm going to be that voice and I'm going to also empower people. And for you, it's even more pronounced because the idea that there's so few agencies in a country which is mostly Black that are run by Black people is crazy. It's
Right.
crazy that all of these products then are being put out by people who don't really understand the needs, the messaging, the wants, like insecurities, all of it. None of it is being paid attention to. And
100%.
it's super crazy, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of like if you think about it for women's products, men
Mm.
coming up with a tagline for bras, men coming up with a tagline for whatever, right? How can you possibly understand the experience?
Yeah.
What do you think is, because I imagine it must be so different running your own agency versus having been part of an agency. What are some of the things that surprised you about going off on your own to do this? Like, what are some of the really amazing things? I mean, you get to empower people. That's a huge one. You get to give them voice. What are some of the really other amazing things? And what are some of the frustrations or some of the difficulties?
So obviously when you work in an agency, there's a certain structure that has been built and that a lot of agency run to make sure that you really get the support that you need. Like it's a well-oiled machine, you know. Everyone has their jobs. You have your copywriter that is just only copy, you have your designer that is just copy, you have your client person, you have your traffic person. And when in a smaller agency, you end up having to wear several hats. Just because you are great at strategy or great at copy, it's unfortunately in a smaller agency, you have to do more things. And so being in this place where I am running things on my own, I've had to broaden my skills and wear multiple hats and do the things that I don't want to do, essentially, in order to make the business run, because it's bigger than just my strategy skill, you know?
Yeah, the having to be everything is really challenging.
Literally.
They always say that entrepreneurship is like boot camp for personal development. And I really think that's true because you're doing all these things, there's super high stress. And then you see where you're really weak, not just in technical skills, but also like emotional areas or things that you don't want to do. For me, and I think we share this in the beginning, for me, like being visible was very challenging. The idea of me being on video or the idea of me talking or that was not something I wanted to ever be doing. I actually paid models with my first brand and had a photo shoot so I wouldn't have to represent that brand. So, it's hard because now, like, you kinda it's changing, right? The dynamic is people want to know who is the
Who you
person, but
exactly.
yeah, I think that it's good and it's bad, but so definitely frustration is you've gotta do so many things beyond your main pillar skill, which is strategy.
Exactly.
What do you think is some of the, really amazing things that have come out of it for you that you really enjoy or that are memorable for you?
There's so many skills, lessons, there's so many things that I've had to learn because of that. There's so many skills that I would, if I was working in a company, I would not have even thought of, like even from an accounting side, the business side, networking, putting together business proposals, even like becoming a little bit of a designer, you know? It's even the soft skills of being able to speak to people, being able to work among teams, and then the resilience, the having to talk yourself up, because that's very scary. Sometimes you take this stuff personal. If something fails, you start feeling like you are a failure yourself because your business does become you. I feel like entrepreneurship is a holistic experience because it taps into so many things. It's more than just a job. Also, it allows you to dream more, pushing things to limit, challenging yourself, doing things that you would never have thought you would have done.
Well, I'll ask you this question, actually. I'll ask you a little bit later about, like, why we do it when it's so freaking hard.
Why?
I'll ask you that later.
Why?
Think about it in
Because
your
we love
mind.
pain.
Let me ask you this, though, like, you're talking about the lessons you learned. What's one of the lessons that you wish that you had learned sooner? Either about it can be something technical, it can be something administrative, it can be something more mindset-wise. Like, what's something you wish that you would have learned earlier in these 4 years?
I wish that I learned to go find people who are doing similar earlier. I wish I went and found a tribe sooner, because when you go and you find people who are doing similar things to what you're doing, who are going through the same trials and tribulations as you are, people who you can share your ideas, who can support you, who you can share your network with, and they can share yours with. If I had figured this out early, what would have taken me 2 years, I promise you, would have taken me 6 months. But I was busy trying to be Bob the Builder, building for myself, trying to learn each thing, trying to yeah, I would have
Yeah.
found a tribe sooner.
Yeah, we are it's so true. You start out trying to be Bob the Builder for so long. I did that too. I was like, "I can do it on my own. I'm the one." And it's like you feel so alone because of it, don't you? You
Literally,
feel like so alone.
you
It's
do.
yeah, yeah.
And not
That's
to forget the feelings that come with it, the emotions, the anxiety. It's a lot. It's a lot.
yeah, and to know that you're not crazy, I think is a big one too. That you can
Girl.
talk to people.
And you feel too scared to speak, to talk about it, because you don't want people to think that you're struggling and therefore you should quit, because that's what a lot of people's solution is. Even your family, sometimes they worry about you, and the easiest thing is like, I know in my situation, when I started my business and I was traveling, my mom would call me and just be like, Miranda, you're a native speaker, why can't you just go be a teacher? Do TEFL and teach. And it was like, no mom, I have this dream.
This actually was on one of the other interviews that we were saying is you get so much advice from people who don't understand because they often have normal, regular salaried jobs. And the solution when you're really unhappy in a salaried job is to quit and go for the next thing. but it's
Exactly.
not with entrepreneurship. That's just not the way that it works. And so these people don't know how to help you because in their mind, they're like, well, you just go do something else, as if it's so easy when you're insane like we are.
Exactly, exactly. And honestly, for you to continue, you like you said, you have to be, what is that saying that they're saying these days? Being Delulu is the Sululu. That 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 is entrepreneurship.
It's so true. What do you think is honestly the hardest part? Because there's a lot of hard parts. Let's be real. There's a lot of hard parts in this journey. But what do you think is the continual hardest one for you specifically? What have you most struggled to get your mind around?
Pushing through. You have an idea and you can't see it. There's nothing that you don't have like proper material to prove it. And sometimes you just have a strong feeling and a drive, and that's all you have, and just a love and a passion. I think that that's been the hardest for me, but also the most rewarding, I would say. Because with some of the stuff, it's not really something that you're able to always call somebody for them to put the ignite the light and the fire into you. It's a lot of you doing it for yourself. I think that's been the hardest but the most rewarding. I think it helps that I have ADD, so I'll go and I'll even forget that, I'm stressed, and I'll keep going and I'll keep going until, like, I'm like, "Wow, I actually did this. I forgot I was stressed. I forgot about this fear." But yeah, just staying on it, keeping the dream alive, and pushing yourself.
That's the hardest thing. And yeah, some days a lot more challenging than others, and some days are amazing, but yeah, it is really it's something. There's no other way to say it, like, it's definitely something. Do you have an example of something that happened to you in this journey that was really inspiring or kind of made you laugh, that took the stress off? Like, what's something that you kind of look on fondly in the journey?
I remember I was dating this guy, and who had been on his entrepreneur journey for a while, and I don't know why in my mind I thought that, okay, this is also great because he can also like help me out. Boy, was I wrong. He was like, I'm here to date you, not to be your coach, not to be your teacher, not to be your lecturer. And I remember this one day, I was literally having an anxiety attack because I was like, I don't know if what I'm doing makes sense. And I was crying and I was like, I'm feeling anxious. I'm running out of money. I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if like I'm just delusional. And he was just like, you have decided to take this journey of entrepreneurship. It's not for everyone, and you actually have the option to go back to employment if you want. I've been doing this for a while, but one thing is that I will sleep on the street before I go work for somebody else. So you need to decide yourself, are you all in or are you out? We still laugh about that till today, but that's when I decided, you know what? I'm not a baby and I'm going to fight for myself. I wiped my tears and I got to it. I'm going to do this until I have to sleep on the street. You know what I mean? And I think that for me, although it sounds so silly, was a moment where I was like, wow, okay, it really is all in. Sometimes people think that you get into entrepreneurship and it's cushiony and you just have to put in the work. No, it's fear, it's anxiety, and you have to do it scared.
This is an amazing story because he basically said exactly what the choice is. Because I think in the first year when you start as an entrepreneur, you have this idea in the back of your head like, "Oh, I could always go back. It could always happen." But then there's this switch where it's like, "No, I could never go back."
Yeah,
And when people say, "Oh, you can always go get a job," like, if you're really truly in it, that's not an option. It's just
exactly.
not the thing for you. Maybe you do it on the side. I know a lot of people, like, they'll be working and then they'll have their entrepreneurship on the side and then they'll grow it. But if it's a choice between I'm working or I'm doing my business, it's just, like, it's not really a choice for us. I think you do it because you can't imagine another way.
Exactly.
I wanna make sure I ask you this one because I think it's so important. When we're entrepreneurs, we make a lot of mistakes. It's gonna happen, just as we waste a lot of money. What do you think is the worst thing that you invested in?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to get so much hate for this, but I think it's important for entrepreneurs to know this because we do get into a state of desperateness. Disclaimer also when I say this, but coaches that I didn't do my research on. There are amazing coaches out there who have helped me to get to where I am, but I've also invested in coaches that I didn't do my research, and I was desperate and I thought that they were going to save me, who were doing their trial and testing on me. Prayers would have even been better than some of what I went through. I put so much money into that and I didn't get what I didn't get my return on investment. I could have taken that money and used that to on a website, for example, or on a graphic designer, or someone to help me with more practical skills. So
Yeah.
I would just say that if you are starting, you don't to be a coach, you don't always have to be regulated. So therefore there's some people who cling onto people's desperation of wanting of and fear, and you need to be careful of those people. But the ones who are amazing, find them. But that's what I would say where I wasted my money,
Yeah. I
looking for
think this is
saviors.
the Did you say looking for saviors?
Yeah, which was also wrong, because don't go looking for a coach thinking that they're just going to save you.
Yeah. You have to be at the right state in your business, in the right state of mind with the right person. I think that's
Exactly.
key. Is like we've all done that. I've 100% did that. I wasn't in the right state of my business. It wasn't the right person. Maybe for someone else that would have worked. I don't know. But I think, yeah, you're not going to get hate for this at all because we all know this is true. Like most everyone I've spoken to so far, that is the worst investment they made. Every single person is like
Girl.
looking for savior.
And because we want to be saved, we want to be
Yeah,
saved. You and
but no one can do it.
but no one can do it. But find someone who aligns with you. And I mean, a lot of the most successful people have coaches. We need coaches. But don't get bamboozled on this internet. This internet is big and wide, guys. Big and wide and full of scammers.
And full of scammers. What do you think is the best investment you made? What's something that actually paid off either with business growth or personal growth or visibility? Like what has been the thing that actually was worth it? And maybe it wasn't a huge investment, but something that you feel I'm glad I did this and I would want other people to think about it too.
I'm going to sound so biased, but I think branding bootstrapped my business, okay? Because I was just like, I need money yesterday. So I was doing the most and looking crazy while I was doing it at the beginning. But when I eventually rebranded and I put in the time and the energy into my brand, honestly, it's like the money started moneying, the clients started coming, like everything just even the kind of people that I was working with, like I feel like the standard, everything just changed. And something that I always tell my clients, guys, is perception is reality.
Subtle plug.
Holla at your girl. No, I'm
No,
joking.
I think
It doesn't have to be me, but yeah, it's a real thing.
no, it is a real thing. Like that is one thing that I feel gets left on the table is people don't think about it, is it's just like all over the place and they haven't really thought about even, what are the brand values? What are you trying to convey? All the softer, the deeper stuff, because people think it's just about logos and it's not. I think that's not the thing, right? Like the branding is your messaging, it's who you're speaking to, your values, all of that stuff is so important. So I agree with you on that. Second to last question for you is why, and we kind of already said this before, why is it always worth being an entrepreneur? No matter how hard it is, how difficult, those tough days, why for you is it always still worth it?
Like I said earlier, it's a holistic experience, and it's the growth that comes with it. It's the freedom that comes with it. Just a small example is in agency, for example, in branding. Normally when you have a big brand, let's say you have Coca-Cola, agencies will pitch to get this account. Then Coca-Cola will choose. Let's say your agency's won, you will work like a dog, okay? And then once Coca-Cola is done with you, they will go and pitch again for another clients. And when that happens, sometimes the agency needs to actually let go of people, you know, and meaning instability. When you become an entrepreneur, you kind of put all of that stuff into your own hands. Yes, it's scary, but when you work hard, you actually see the seeds that you have sown flourish. I don't know if that's the saying, but you get what I mean. You're at the front seat of the whole your journey and your experience versus putting it on somebody else.
You're building for you, not for
Exactly.
someone else.
Exactly. I wouldn't give up anything for that, you know?
Every
Yeah,
hard, difficult day and crazy experience it is for that ultimately is like you are responsible for you and no one
exactly.
can lay you off.
Exactly. Exactly.
Where can people listening connect with you? Either because they want to know more about branding, they're curious about your journey. Where can they find your company? Where can they connect?
My website is the best place. VUCA, VUKA, brandconsultants.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much,
Yes.
Miranda, for sharing that. I'm going to
Thank
put the
you.
link in the show notes. This was amazing. You did such a good job. I loved this interview. Thank you for coming on.